Hi guys, my name is Kyle. You know, I was talking to my son before I came here, and I said to him, how can I come on the stage? What would be a fun way to come on the stage? And he said I should do the. I thought maybe I won't. Look, it's been a while. I haven't been here for some time, so it's good to be back here again. Rika, I do remember you. I remember our conversation on the stairs at. That's the one, Bukalapak. Very hard. Anyway, my name is Kyle. Meetup is Groke. There's my my stuff on the board. How many of you guys have been programming for more than or less than 1 year? Less than 1 year. Okay, more than 3 years. Less than 3 years. Not just Ruby, right? Like just programming in general. Yeah. Okay, cool. Who's brand new in the job that they're in right now? Nobody brand new? Anybody been in your job for more than 1 year? No. Okay, so look, this, the talk that I'm going to do today is about the challenges that I experienced as I was going along as a software developer. I've been programming for more than 20 years. Almost 20 years. Not more than 20 years. I'm not that old. I'm old. I had more hair at the last talk, and less kids. But so this is all about getting to that next step, you know, because what I found was that I got stuck after a while, and so we'll talk about that as we go through. And so, you know, most of us are reaching for this kind of software. We want it to be shiny and fast and exciting, and when you look at it, you want to just say, wow, that's amazing, right? That's what we want to deliver. That's what we want to give our clients or our CEO, right? But often we sort of get here, right? So we're delivering, but this is what comes out. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's still roughly the same thing. It works. It's not quite as shiny, but it's just not there, you know. And so we don't know why. We go like, well, why if I want to deliver that, why did I deliver this, you know? And so we're always reaching for that next step. We're trying to get to that next level. There's a lot of slides. I'm just going to keep flicking through. That's you. So, you know, often we find ourselves in a situation where we have some developers are delivering one kind of thing. Wasn't me. I'm good. And another developer is delivering something equally spectacular, but we are not delivering the same. And we always come to the code review and you think, well, single responsibility principle. You know, that kind of thing. So what's the difference between me and this guy, you know, who every time the manager sees him, he's like, oh, look at this wonderful code, it's beautiful, code review, perfect, and cool, now just merge, yeah, no problem. What is going on? And so this is where I want to say just, you know, you just have to relax, because everything is a journey. You know, we're all on a long walk. It's been a long day. What's your name, sir? Nifta. It's been a long day, yeah? Oh, me too. I got up at 4 this morning. Help is at hand. You know, a lot of support, but you got to know what you know. So, and that is about, because at one point, I didn't know what I didn't know, you know. So you got to be honest with yourself. We all think that we're better than we really are. You know, there was a time, and don't be afraid. Look at it very specifically and say to yourself, so where am I at? What do I know? What don't I know? And write it down or do something, you know. And I had this dream. Now, here's my little story. I had this dream. I wanted to be a great software developer. Actually, when I started software programming, I was about 20 something. I'm not going to tell you how much, then you can look it up. And I got in. I was working, so I just put the credits at the bottom. But I was working in a call center, and they had, the call center that I worked in was a big insurance company, and the big insurance company did psychometric testing from time to time. So 2 months later, this is me doing a psychometric test. Another month later, got a job. I was a VB programmer. Anybody know about VB? Oh, wow.
Some of us are old.
A little bit scary. So, you know, this was me. I was very happy. I got involved in the job. I was making a lot of money for what I thought was a lot of money for not much effort. Sit every day, write some programs, play around with some, you know, VB have this nice forms and things that you just do stuff with it. I knew nothing about programming at the time. But then about a year later, we started getting the experience of people are now expecting something from me. Somebody wants me to deliver some software. Somebody wants me to write something meaningful. So they're giving me a specification and I have to write the code. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. I didn't understand, you know. And so after that, I thought, okay, somebody's going to find out that maybe I'm not a good programmer, right? Maybe I'm not very good. Maybe I'm just hiding away in the big company, in a huge company. In that company, it was an insurance company in South Africa. There was maybe 400 software developers on 4-5 different levels of a huge building, and it was a big insurance company. So it was easy to hide away. But then I moved to Australia, and now you can't hide away because there's no company is that big, right?
Sir, sorry, sir. I'll be the interruption. Can we change our mic because it seems doesn't work? Oh, it's working. Just that close enough. Sorry.
Do you want me to speak like this?
Maybe. Or maybe you found this very not that. It's not supposed to be that close. Wonderful time, beautiful time.
So. Oh, that's intense. Okay. So every year or so I moved, and I didn't want anyone to find out that I was, you know, and I was scared of that if they did find out that they would just go, oh, you're fired. And that doesn't look great on your resume, right? Because then you go to the next job, and then they say, what can you do? And then the other guy says, nothing. And then you say, but I really want to do something. And you know, so after about 10 years, I did this for about 10 years, right? So every year and a half, 2 years, when I felt like people were starting to find out things about me, I would go, okay, gotcha, I'm out. I go to the next job. But the thing is, I started telling myself, after about 10 years, I said, actually, I'm really good at this. I'm good at this job. I can code, I can write tests, I can communicate, I can do documentation. And then I said, yeah, I should be a senior software developer now. Because if I look on the pay scale, go, oh, the senior software developer can do this, that, yep, that's me. Yeah? So I could talk to my boss, big argument, and then I quit. I moved to another job. Right? So, you know, what happened is, in Melbourne, where I arrived, so there's many steps in between, this is the short version, in Melbourne, what happens is almost every reputable company, do you understand that? Reputable, any company with any good reputation is going to give you a coding challenge. All right, you're not just going to say, show my resume and then I can get the job. They give you a coding challenge, and then you do the coding challenge, and then they work out if they will interview you. So you first do the coding challenge, then they decide if they're going to do an interview. And I did, I don't know, 4 coding challenges, and then I realized, man, these guys are all saying no. I mean, I'm a great programmer. Why don't they want to hire me? You know? So I thought about it, and I went back to one of my coding challenges that one guy gave. His name is Stu Liston. He's a Ruby mentor. And he was for Huru, which is Jetstar. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Qantas, but Jetstar is a subsidiary of Qantas, and I was applying for a job at this company called Huru, which does all the work for Jetstar. And at this guy, on the Git feedback, it was just so much detail. Oh, you should have done this here and that there, consider this, blah, this wasn't, blah. Really nice, somebody who cared. So I looked through it and I said, okay, this guy gave feedback here. I didn't understand. One other guy just said no. Other guy also just said whatever. And the other guy wrote feedback, but I didn't understand it. So I couldn't understand what he was talking about. So I went to the guy I could understand, and I wrote him an email, and I said, hey, can I get in touch with you? I'd like to talk about my coding challenge and see where I can prove what I'm missing. I sat down with Stu for 2 hours. He was kind enough to meet with me. Just happens, coincidentally, he was a Ruby mentor and in Australia, and he sat down for 2 hours and we talked about everything that I'd done. Starting from tests, looking through the solid principles, and we just went through everything on my one coding challenge. And then I made a lot of notes. And when I was finished, he said to me, you're not that bad. You're just missing some basic things. And he gave me a list of people that I could look up on the internet, videos that I could watch, papers, books, etc. that I could read. And that was one of the best things that happened to me, because at this point I still didn't know what I didn't know. I also didn't know exactly what I did know, because I thought at that time, senior programmer, right? Yeah, I wanted $80,000 a month. That's what I wanted. I mean, per annum per month. Actually, 80,000 per month would be nice. But no, I didn't get that far. So after I met with Stu, I only talked to him one time, just one time. But it had such a profound effect on me. This is about 6 years ago. And I feel like for that whole time I was a developer of software. But at that point I became a software engineer. And it's quite a difference in the mind shift, the way that you look at your code, the way that you understand what somebody else is expecting of you. So this is what I learned. I said, you got to get a mentor. You got to talk to your friends, your peers, the people that you work with, your managers, all people in your management, everybody in your team, up, down, every direction, right? Because the information that you get from everybody is not going to be the same for everyone, because everybody see you from a different perspective. Some people say, oh, you're a pretty good programmer. Somebody else maybe is better than you, says, oh, you're doing well, you're coming up really, really well. Somebody is just like a high position, maybe you have a tech lead that you're working with, and that person can give you a different kind of feedback, you know. And then you make a commitment, and you say, okay, I'm going to go to the next level. But you don't know what that is, right? So you first got to find out what the next level is. So you go your HR, or you go to your tech lead, or you go to your CTO, or whoever your next person is in your immediate chain of management, and you say, hey, I'm here, I'm currently employed, mid-level, senior. What is the next step? How do I get to tech lead? How do I get to senior? How do I make this next step? And then maybe they will sit down with you, but it's not okay for them to say you must improve. Yeah? This is not an acceptable response. You need to sit there and say, well, we can't go forward until you tell me exactly how or what is skills I need to get to the next level. So this is where we get involved. Yeah. So get a mentor, right? I mean, have you seen this movie?
Yeah, Karate Kid.
There's no way he would have beat that guy if he didn't learn some karate, right? He would have just been some guy who got slapped around, right? So there's a link down here. These are the mentors in Australia who are happy to communicate online, right? So they'll talk to people online. This document is going to be in the GitHub, so you can get there. Know what you don't know. So start with the basics. Go back to solid. You know, I don't know how many people use open-close principle, list of substitutes principle, and interface segregation principle. These ones you hear about a lot, right? Oh, I don't know if you guys hear about it a lot. Does anybody know what dependency inversion is? Anyone? No? Okay. Get involved in this, right? Because this is all very, I don't want to say basic because I feel like that's to be rude right now, but if you, these are the fundamentals of software programming. This is what Kent Beck and Michael Feathers and those guys spent a lot of time on. We read all their books. We all read. I don't know if you guys read books. Do you read Ruby programming? Any programming books? No. So single responsibility principle is any piece of code needs to do only one thing. If you have a piece of code that takes variable, that calculates x plus y, it can't also print something, right? Something else has to do the printing. If its job is to calculate x plus y, it must only do x plus y, it mustn't do print. If you have, for the open-close principle, so this means that it's open for extension and closed for modification, right? Which means that you can create new types. So you have, this works well in fairly, or at least translates well in languages like Java and C++, where you have specific interface types that you define. But it works just as well in Ruby. We use it all the time, right? So read about that. List-cup substitution principle. You know, I so rarely use this one. But these two guys, list-cup substitution principle and interface segregation principle, are roughly the same thing. What they're saying is that if in any situation where you have an interface that has components that you don't use. For example, I should have probably done some code. I thought you'd have a whiteboard and I could write on the whiteboard. But, if you have let's say you have a bird class, right? And you put can fly, you put altitude, coordinates on the GPS, and I don't know, hungry, whatever. So, then you can make seagulls, you can make parrots, you can make, I don't know, chickens. I like chicken, and I like baka. Yeah, baka. Just remember. But then you get a penguin, right? Penguin doesn't fly. So the altitude method that is on the interface or the abstract class isn't being used. But you have to define it because you have to throw an error for can fly or altitude for penguin. So what they're saying, what the list-cup substitution principle says, that should have its own interface. So you should take that out and then refactor the base class so that it represents maybe just the coordinates, and then you have flightful bird. Flightless bird. I don't think there's an English word called flightful, but whatever. And then this interface segregation principle is roughly the same thing. So if you have, and it's all about having methods that are useful. And so interface segregation principle is about duck typing. Everybody know what duck typing is? So it doesn't matter what object you're using, if you can call, so toString is a really useful one because it's on everything. So you can call toString on just about every Ruby class, right? So that is a kind of duck typing. So what they've done there is they've segregated the interface. They realized that every class might need to have a. I'm just talking about the examples, right? Nobody said they knew what solid was. And then dependency inversion. If you have a method, now I'm really expecting you guys to imagine some code right now. I know it's hard, it's been late, it's a long day, it's been raining outside, it's like, oh my goodness, my code check wasn't on time. But you, so if you have a method that you're trying to output from, so you're trying to output something, whether it's to the printer, whether it's to the standard out, whether you're trying to just you're trying to output to another website, you're trying to just some way. So if you pass in, if you define the output inside the method, then you limit the scope of that method. And so if you have one method that does standard output, then you have to write another method that does printing to the printer, or you have to do another one that does writing to some API or whatever your output is going to be. What the dependency inversion principle says, don't tell the method where it needs to print. Just pass in the object where you want to print to and call print. So that takes that dependency on that particular object or output away from that method. So it all comes back to, I mean, if you do single responsibility, then you tend to, does everyone know about the single responsibility principle? Put your hand up if you don't know, but no, actually don't do it. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that, it's a bit rude. So get some education going, right? Read about this stuff. There's a great video that I was looking for and I can't find, which I watched, which helped me a lot in my education. So Sandy Metz has done the magic tricks of testing, and it's all about segregation and learning how to see the code for what it is, right? Katrina Owen did therapeutic refactoring, and this DHH, everybody know what DHH is? He didn't like his last name, it's just Hansen, so he said, let's call me DHS. And then there's some other books, right? These are the books that I read, these are the videos that I watched. I didn't watch this video, I watched it recently, but Katrina Owen, Sandy Metz have been instrumental in shaping the way I think about Ruby and how I build Ruby code. But kudos to Stu Liston who put me on the path. And Sandy Metz has practical object-oriented development. Has anyone read this book? Sandy Metz currently defines the way we think about Ruby programming. I'd say that you guys should get into this. Have a look. Russ Olson did design patterns in Ruby. Has anyone read any design patterns books at all? How many of you guys are married and have kids? Okay, the rest of you have no excuses, right? Because guys who are married and have kids don't have time to read books, right? They're messing around with their families. There's a lot of you here who shouldn't be reading these books. Get this stuff, it's available online. I mean, your company should be investing in this. If you don't have a library that has these books in it in your company, you should go work for someone else. Sorry, just in case you don't have this in your library. And then there's Obi Fernandez, The Rails Way, which you know, they produce a new Rails book every single time they make a change to the Ruby on Rails framework. They update all the editorial information that they have, all the literature, and you will get a new book. So if you do the electronic version of this book, you'll always be up to date. And then Michael Fowler did a refactoring book. I don't know, has anyone heard about Michael Fowler? One person, two. Okay. Learn about these people. These are the guys that have shaped the way we think about code, right? Kenneth Beck and Bob Martin. Yeah. That's right. You know Bob Martin? Robert C. Martin. He wrote Clean Code. That guy. This is a great book, but it's like reading Tolstoy's. Have you read any Tolstoy? I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. So I'm not exciting you about reading the book, but it's great. It's really, really fantastic information in there. It's still good today. Communicate, talk to people. You know, I didn't know what I didn't know because I didn't talk to anybody. And I was scared to get information from other people. I was afraid that someone would get back to me and say, actually, Kyle, you're not that good. And yeah, I had to hear that a couple of times. You know, and after talking to Stu Liston, 9 months later, I did another Ruby test. And so this company that I work for right now, Cogent, this was the second time I've done a challenge, a coding challenge with them. And when they hired me, they said they could not believe the difference between the first submission and the second submission. It's all in the education, right? I was writing OO. I was thinking about my code in terms of the solid coding principles. I was trying to optimize my code. I was writing my tests first and refactoring my code afterwards, right? And then refactoring my tests and then. But communication isn't just this, right? Like we all think, yeah, I'll talk, email, have a chat, speak to some people. Ooh, something's missing. Huh. Anyway, there's a page missing. Communication is also about body language, it's about posture. It's about, if you want to get to the next level, it's about talking to people in a way that they can understand you. If I am standing, I need my hands. If I'm talking to someone, someone is talking here like this, what am I saying? Not interested. If I got my phone out, in a meeting, in a talk, in a conversation, someone is talking to me, what am I saying? I'm just missing that person, right? They're not as important as what I'm doing right now. And so these are all things that we need to think about. If you're standing around and you talk to people with your hands in your pockets like this, you're saying, you're less than me. I'm showing you that I'm, body language, I don't know, it's cultural, right? So you have to work out what works for your culture. I'm just saying in the Western world, if you're talking to somebody, a nice open posture is normally going to work nicely for you, and it's like a more friendly face. If you just normally have a face that looks like this, that's okay. Whatever, you can't do much about that. But we all want to get to the next level. We all want to make strides. So take the feedback, take the comments, get into that code review. One of the best things that I've learned as a software developer is to, as soon as I've submitted some code and I've created a PR, I get onto my tech lead or whoever's the people that I'm working with, and I say, guys, can we sit down and do a code review? Can we do one now? Because I can't wait for later. Plus, I'm also trying to deliver something, but and people will give you good feedback. Now, it's not always great feedback because sometimes somebody says, oh, I don't like that. If someone say, I don't like that, don't take it personal, okay? Ask them, what don't you like about it? And there's a guy that I used to work with he's very smart, very intelligent guy, but can't articulate, right? So he can't talk. And so if I would put my code in for submission, and he would write back, and he would just say, "Nah, can I say shit?" Anyway, I said it. And and then I would say, "Well, what is?" You might have to edit that out. Yeah, sorry. What is wrong with the code? And then you say, I just don't like it. I say, but what don't you like? I say, well, you can do that differently. And then what are you talking? What can we do differently? Eventually, there's nothing actually there. It's just that in some cases, people like to have an opinion, and if they feel like they don't have an opinion, then they're not smart, right? And you have to let that happen too. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody got something to say. But also try to be constructive. And if you want someone to give you good feedback, give good feedback, right? Be specific. Give an example. If somebody comes and writes some code and you say, this section you need to redo this, that's not good feedback, right? You need to say, this piece of code has 2 responsibilities. I think that you should break it up into 2 different sections and consider writing a test that covers those scenarios. That is good feedback, right? So give good feedback, give better feedback than you had before, but also get it. Go get feedback. Don't be scared. Don't hide away. If you feel like you're not there, you're producing the little dirt bike still. You're not quite producing the. Because I know Indonesians like a nice motorbike, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
What kind of motorbike do you ride? Do you have a motorbike?
Yes.
Everybody has a motorbike. What am I saying? Do you have a motorbike? Might as well say, do you eat rice? No. That's not true. Everybody eats rice too, right? But get advice. And the result, so it actually doesn't matter what people say. It matters how constructive it is for you, right? So if you get something that's useful, use it. My dad used to say when I was a kid, you don't eat the fish with the bones, right? You spit out the bones and you take the good bits that is useful to you, that can help you grow. Think about that when you're getting feedback. I know your code is personal, it's emotional. Right? Somebody comes and tell you, and you say, well, I spent the last 3 weeks cutting that piece of code, and now you want to come and all over it. Kind of thing. But we can't. It's not constructive because we don't get further, and we just create more rifts, and it makes it harder for us to move on. Some of my best relationships that I have now were with exactly those kind of people, and I used to be exactly that kind of guy. And I used to say, well, why are you always picking on me? Why am I always the guy that gets the long feedback in the PR? Why have I always got all these long changes? It doesn't matter, right? Go back, look at the things that are valuable to you and that are relevant, and work on them. Develop relationships. I know that programmers become programmers because they want to look at computers and not people. But we work with people, right? And everything that we do is about developing better relationships. And if you have a better relationship, better communication, better learning opportunities, which result in better programmers, right? Better coders. Like I said, about 6 years ago, I became a software engineer. That was a transition for me. I was a programmer for a long time. I programmed all sorts of stuff, but I wasn't looking at my code like somebody who was actually interested in developing the best possible thing that I could. I know this is not quite relevant, this is more of a mental disability thing, but I thought the question still stands, like it's okay to ask. Don't be, if you need help, get help. Help is out there. And make a commitment. Just find people that, work with your team. We used to do coding dojos once a week. How many of you guys do coding dojos? Do your company do coding dojos? Anyone? No coding dojos. Getting to a coding dojo. Has anyone heard of exorcism? Okay. So these are all things that help you move on to, because programming is not just about finishing the feature. It's about finishing the feature well. It's about writing a piece of code that somebody else can come and look at and you can be proud of. You know, we take pride in our work. Who doesn't take pride in the work? Who does not care what they deliver? Don't raise your hand just in case your boss is here. But none of us want that, right? Nobody wants that. Everybody wants to produce the motorbike, the shiny, high-speed roadster. You know, we all want that. So care more. It's good. Yeah, there's a slide missing there, but we'll save the questions for after, according to the format. But yeah, guys, the next level isn't that far away. If you want to get to the next step, it's a few short things. This slides are available. They were instrumental in changing the way that I work. Let's begin talking to you, and thank you for listening.